Welcome to the Splitting Hairs podcast presented by True North Retirement Team and Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro of Brookings, South Dakota. We're coming at you live on this Tuesday night. About to talk shop. Stack, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Not a whole lot. Back at the crib, so I'm doing good.
I like it. I like it. So Stack's back in Chi-Town, and I'm here in Texas per usual. I'm dressed in a little bit of business attire tonight because we're about to wrap up our final business meeting of the regular season. It will be senior day for the Jackrabbits on Saturday against Missouri State. So get out there and honor them if you can. I know they're doing a lot of different deals in the ticketing department to try to make those tickets accessible and try to drive demand. So if you can get a chance to support them, make it happen. And before we dive into Missouri State and the happenings that are coming up this weekend, we want to recap a little bit of the Youngstown State game. This is a pretty wild one out there in Youngstown, Ohio, at Stambaugh Stadium, otherwise known as the Ice Castle. Stack, what was your overall impressions of the game?
The boys can play, and I mean you can kind of tell from the jump they jumped on and didn't let off the brakes at all. I thought the Penguin celebrations were hilarious. Just kind of trolling them with their own mascot was pretty good, but just the level of play, just week in and week out, how they've been playing this whole year, it's really just kind of been they've been trying to make a point to be like, yo, like we're one of the best FCS teams to ever, do it. And it's kind of looking that way. And they're making a really good case for it. The way the defense has been playing, the way the offense could attack you so many different ways. When I look at this team, me and Tolu were talking about, a couple weeks ago, dude, even if they saw 2019 North Dakota State or 2016 North Dakota State or some of the crazier teams that we've played against, I don't know what they would do against them, and Coach Rogers had them coached up well enough to where they don't really take breaks. They don't have bad games, you know what I mean? If the score is close, it's because the team played really well. It doesn't look like, oh, well, we're just playing bad. Other than penalties and stuff, we do need to clean that up. But overall play throughout 4 quarters, they're looking really good.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that it'd be foolish to say that it probably doesn't cross their mind if they reflect on the overall production of this class, this team as a whole, and if they really start to look in the rear view to see how many folks in general are, producing six stats, whether it be units on the defense, holding teams to roughly 11 points a game, or on the offense, putting up roughly 37, 38 points a game, protecting the football, how many different guys are getting involved. I think Mark hit about 10 different receivers on Saturday. Anybody can get it from a competitive standpoint. And I think that's probably what they're focused on more than anything. It's whoever's in their way, they're going to smash. And I don't think it's they're taking anyone lightly. I think it's just a reflection of they know where their ceiling is when they execute well. And I'm not even so sure they've hit that yet, which is good. We'll dive into it when we talk more about FCS playoff projections, but FCS Reddit put out a pretty interesting tweet looking at just historical FCS dominant teams over time, including even the Marshall team with Randy Moss and Chad Pennington and some true studs back then. And South Dakota State, along with them, James Madison of 17, 16, and some of the other dominant programs, you're seeing the Jacks in statistical categories. Obviously, a lot of football left to be played, but only a few points off here and there of the most dominant numbers of all time. So that being said, there's a lot more to get to, but just consider this, folks, as we start to look forward into these playoff projections. No Indiana State, no Western Illinois, no Murray State on the schedule. We had to pull guys against Western Oregon. We had to pull guys against Drake. Just imagine, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you start to look at what overall production could have been throughout the years, throughout the games, rather, against the opponents that Jackson faced this year. Because we have 7 ranked wins overall. 7 ranked wins. That's insane. I mean, what's your take on that? I don't even know if I've ever heard of a team that has 7 ranked wins. Regardless of what happens on Saturday, I mean, it would be an act of God probably, or a force de jour, to use a word and phrase I just learned this weekend, which means an unforeseen act of nature. Um, to have the Jacks drop this game to Missouri State, and that's zero disrespect to them. It's just knowing what we're capable of. We get a number 1 seed either way with what we've produced. I mean, I
I,
don't see how you don't give us a number 1 seed.
yeah, I just think, if you look at the team this year, like this has actually been a really tough schedule, and they made it look extremely easy. You know what I mean? Like that's like the benefit of like how good they actually are. Like if you would have gave us this schedule like years ago, we'd be like, oh man, this is tough sledding. Like we don't got any games that we could just let loose on someone like because it's UND, UNI, USD, NDSU. Like in the past, it'd be like, holy crap, like this is going to be like something serious. And like they've made light work of games that would like be like knockdown dragouts. You know what I mean? Like UNI on Hobo Day, USD, NDSU back to back, and then playing at Youngstown there, like with a pretty good football team. Like they're embarrassing teams that are really good. Like I think that's just kind of the craziest part. Like because UNI is not bad at all. Like UNI, I think their defense has been playing some great ball. Like we said earlier, we're seeing Theo Day's praises, but like these are good football teams that they are just embarrassing. You know what I mean? So yeah, no disrespect to anyone else in the FCS, but like I seen a tweet earlier that was like it's SDSU and then just kind of everyone else, like a big gap, and then everyone else, and that's kind of what it looks like.
No, yeah, it definitely does, and that's not to say that there's not some people who can go on a run, right? Because much like basketball, you get hot during the playoffs. Who knows what could come of competition later on in the year? You get a team slip in, you get a team who's depleted due to injury, which is a great equalizer. And I don't think that we could take any team for granted from that perspective. At the same time, the recurring theme that we see across media personalities and folks who cover the game pretty devoutly on social media and just in general in the press, South Dakota State is its own worst enemy. Now let's take a bite-sized sample of that. Probably top 2 best teams we played all year, Montana State, probably top 3 literally as it stands today, top teams in the nation. We were moving the ball on our first offensive series against them after a 3 and out on defense. Self-inflicted wounds with penalties. We had an absurd amount of penalties in that game. Self-inflicted wound with a fumble that bounces off Mark's knee, which is a fluke. Maybe it was recovered in bounds. Maybe it wasn't. They ruled it was, right? You got to go with the call on the field when there's not conclusive evidence, and you got to go with the call on the field when they get it correct, just like the end of the game with that Hail Mary lob prayer. And then you look at when we did score, how effortless and quickly we did score when we got all of our ducks in a row and we're getting out of our own way. A 2-play game sealing scoring drive to Graham Goring, a redshirt freshman, and then to GF Dub, Griffin Effin Wilde, who's a true freshman, torching fools. Come on, man. Get out of here. Sorry, it's a 3-play. It was a 2-play scoring drive, 1 to Graham and then a short pass that GF Dub housed. So you look at that and like then you go, oh, we were down Adam Bach. The way they schemed, and this is a credit to MSU, the way they schemed the run game, they took an extra body and had them fit in the run game, and they were just running their quarterbacks all day, right? They were very smart to try to control the game flow. But look at when we had the ball and we got out of our own way, we started murking them. It's
Yeah,
and
they were
that was
able.
that was the challenge of the year. Where's the other challenge been?
Yeah, they were able to like it's a credit to their coach. They were able to sit on the ball for a really long time, and I honestly think our defense has been playing better and better every week. I think if they see a 2 quarterback running system now, the way our defensive line's been playing, yeah, I'm pretty sure Jackson was
Jaden
out that
didn't
game,
even
right?
play. Yeah, Dan,
Oh,
great
Jaden,
point.
yeah. So it's like,
Jaden didn't even play against Missouri
and,
State or Montana State. Sorry, one of the
and
MSU.
yeah, and our defense has been playing just so much better. Like, without that fumble anyway, like I don't think they, score so quickly. But like, I don't. I'm just speaking personally. Like, I'm not saying that they're bad or anything like that. But if our defense plays like they have been recently in that game, it's a lights out for them, I think.
Exactly, and we should table this for a second and then dive back into because we're definitely going to get into a lot of this stuff as we talk about playoff potentialities. But I want to talk about said defense and the showing that they had on Saturday in Ohio. You got guys like Dallas Beanham just absolutely putting guys, in jail with lock and key and throwing it away because he's just absolutely raised his level of play since early on in the year. Not that it was down, but he's continued to trend in the right direction. We might have to talk about Dyshawn Gales as one of the best corners that's ever played at South Dakota State. Not only from
Yeah,
not only from a coverage standpoint, certainly from a physicality, leadership, juice standpoint, and I absolutely bringing the energy because he doesn't get caught guessing, but he's also another fit in the run game that completely takes away almost a third of the field.
Dyshawn plays like he don't know how small he is.
Yeah,
Like, honestly, and at least from what I've seen, like my time at South Dakota State, I'd say easily the most physical corner like I've seen. You know what I mean? And leadership, physicality, and being able to actually strap up good receivers, like there's not a whole lot that you would want more out of a corner at South Dakota State, in my opinion.
exactly. And then you talk about headiness. There was maybe one time where he got a little bit beat. He got tabbed for a holding or a PI call. The game was pretty much decided at that point, but he understands implications. I'd much rather get that than get beat, right?
Yeah.
So, I think when push comes to shove, his name is certainly going to be in the conversation. Half the time, I forget some of our secondary. You know what I mean? Because our defense is, we get like 3 or 4 3 and outs on
Yeah.
Saturday, and then gotta chalk up one to Scott here. We had an unbelievable D line play, I would say, last week. Had I think a mutual sack between Bach
And
and
Brian.
Brian Williams. Brian Williams
Yeah.
batted a ball like he forced a fumble, it popped right into an offensive lineman's lap. He sat on the ball actually, but just his mitten just knocking balls loose left and right. So they're playing with a great tenacity. It was a great little feature between him and Zach because they were they go all the way back to middle school. I want to say baseball. And it's really cool that Zach was able to kind of recruit him into a different form of the South, them both being Florida
Yeah.
boys to South Dakota State, where the weather's a bit more brisk, but they're managing it nonetheless. And then I want to talk about your guy who you've been lauding all year, which is Aaron Wolfkale Holson, because he had another big sack and a big play.
Man, my mentee, man. He's there, big 5'5". But it's just been awesome to kind of see like as the years kind of gone on and more guys been able to play, you've kind of seen less and less of that like level drop off. Like now you're starting to see guys like Wolfkill get a lot more playing time. And I'm pretty sure Logan was out there a little bit too, Logan Green. I think I saw Zach Wilson got a lot of play, and like you're not really seeing the level drop, and like that's what you want out of your D line, where I can like sub to where like when it's like game on the line time, like all right, well Jared DePriest is still like feeling pretty good. So is K Traverse. So, like we can throw them in there. Ryan Van Marl's not like gassed out because everyone has been playing so well. Like now we can play you right now when we need you the most, and like you can give us 100%. So I mean, credit to Coach Bibbs too, for getting the boys right and seeing them trend the right way, like you were saying. I'm excited to see what this D line is going to look like throughout the rest of the playoffs and even next year, honestly, too.
I'm really looking forward to doing my end of season report card after this game. You can check that on our Substack. I also want to shout out everybody who has subscribed, liked, or reviewed our stuff. As you can see, this isn't what I do for a living here on Splitting Hairs. I would love it if one day I can win the lottery or something. I guess I'd have to play it, but If any big billionaire donors want to donate to the Splitting Hairs podcast, so Stack and I can do this full time, that would be excellent. But I got a day job. So those of you who support this movement, if you would continue to like, rate, subscribe, share, that's my shameless plug and plea for you guys to get it to where it appears a bit more in people's feeds, so that they can get some of the content too that they didn't know they were missing out on. But yeah, man, it's going to be exciting to do that end of season report card, because I do think guys like Bobbitt have really answered the bell, being able to push people into the game and really push them to find what their best is, and do it in a manner that's like looking like hockey line changes. You know what I mean? I feel like, I don't know if it was Tyler Merriam or someone I was listening to. It literally looks like they're sending in full units every time. Every time. Like, it's like we got a unit for every potential scenario that an offense is going to throw at us. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's just like, the blessing of just depth. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of awesome to see. And I saw someone said MSU's D-line's playing a whole lot better now. That is a good group up front, but at the same time, they're not seeing O-lines like ours. You know what I mean? Like, Big Sky O-lines are not the same as – I'm not going to throw the whole Missouri Valley Conference in there, but not the same as South Dakota State.
No, MSU D-line, our D-line is not playing as good as – didn't play as good in the MSU game as they are now. But also, you're correct. I mean,
they are good.
It's a different style of play out there in the Big Sky. It is more finesse. I would say Montana State tends to mirror more of a Missouri Valley team in terms of style of play. Because if you look at, Vegan came from North Dakota State. He likes the power. He loves power. He kind of implemented it there. And then he loves the multiple tight end sets. He loves the multiple back sets. He would prefer not to throw the ball, I think, one time if he didn't have to. Maybe 4 times a game, and all 4 would be play action, if I were to guess.
Right.
So yeah. But that's what I think he meant, and appreciate you interacting with us, Dan. Yeah, I know we cleared that up. But so Stack, talk about that. How is our what is the reason you think that our chain gang is raising the game?
I think the biggest reason is like everyone is just kind of finding out their role a little bit more, right? Like, because it's kind of new to like a decent amount of guys, like Jared DePriest having to kind of take on a role of taking a lot more snaps. Brian Williams played like not even half of last year because he was hurt a decent amount. Zach Wilson not even like playing that much last year, and Ryan Van Marl having to be like the guy and not having Caleb there to kind of like play off of and kind of find his own role in that. I'm the leader of this D-line, and Cade Revere kind of having to do the same thing without Reese being there. I think it's all just a matter of guys just kind of being like, all right, like it's on me now. Like now I'm up. Like, how do I answer the bell? And I think Coach Bibbs has done a good job at, getting these guys ready to play. And I kind of seen them, their adjustments at halftime. Like, we know Coach Rogers, the adjustments king, right? But I've seen the D-line specifically make different adjustments that have kind of really gotten them into really good spots. Like, I think against SIU, when the quarterback kept scrambling up the middle. Second half, that wasn't happening because we were having I think it was our nose guard was just bulling the center right there, so there's nowhere to run. You know what I mean? So I just think a lot of it was growing pains and figuring out who's going to do what in the absence of, some all-time great D linemen there. And once you guys figured out their role, it was pretty easy from there.
That's a great rundown. I think one of the things to look at here as we work through the stats, we'll just talk about the offensive series first through fourth quarters here. Hunter Dustman ended up settling for a field goal on a really, really promising first drive after we held them to a 3-and-out. 7 minutes and 47 seconds time of possession there. That's insane, guys. That is insane. That is half of a quarter or more almost. I wish we didn't have to settle for it. I think we kind of went away from some things, and credit their defense too. They kind of adjusted to the big runs that Zay was getting, where he was busting off 5, 6, 7 yards of pop. I love that we used and involved the tight ends more in this game, both Mike Morgan and the big unit, Zach Hines. They were able to get what they wanted. Again, he found multiple guys throughout the day, 10 of them to be exact. And then we had a touchdown nullified due to illegal contact downfield. And for those of you wondering, I learned this after it was reinforced for sure, but I kind of felt like all scoring plays you could review, whatever. But it was affirmed after watching the Minnesota Iowa game, in which case Cooper DeJean had a phantom or illegal fair catch that was ended up nullifying a touchdown of their own that he returned on a punt return. But all elements of the player are reviewable. Turns out in the Youngstown State game, we caught the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. So anytime you catch the ball beyond the line of scrimmage and there is a man engaged, obviously that would be pass interference or illegal contact, which was the case as Graham Goring, who played a solid game yet again, kind of bailed us out on one tip ball as well. Really good blocker downfield. I couldn't quite tell because it panned away, but it kind of looked like he even got run over. So I don't. It's kind of adding insult to injury. Maybe he trucked someone, but it looked like bodies went flying. They pulled that one off the board. Next scoring drive, we finally got 7 on the board. That was a 6.5-minute drive, 6 minutes and 22 seconds to be exact, where Mark found Griffin effing Wildy. That's his middle name. And the F is for finisher. We'll go with that, just like Wheezy. And it was pretty cool because Griffin kind of had a couple games there where he wasn't able to reach pay dirt. He definitely did it again this one. And he returned a solid kick, man, just giving us great field position. It's almost like, what can he do at this point? And then later on, from a 16-yard pass from Mark Gronowski. It says Mark Gronowski to Mark Gronowski here, but that's going to be Jaden Yankee, who had 2 touchdowns. That was later on in the second that led to 17 to nothing at that point. And then later on, Hunter Dustman, 43-yard field goal, where we caught it just with 31 seconds before the half. So we were able to double dip, get one before the half, come out literally second play after the kick, or first play after the kick, 56 yards, Jaden Yankee taking tops off all damn day. What was your take on him running that goal line there a little bit?
I mean, I like it, bro. I'm here for it. Like, and I feel like, if you don't want me to do that, don't let me score.
Oh,
that's
I tweeted that. I'm like,
yeah, if you don't like it, bro, like,
you
play
like
better
it,
defense. Yeah.
Keep me out the end zone, Cam Newton.
All right.
Granted, I think some of the stuff where we're kind of digging the knife in a little bit, folks need to understand that the other team talks a lot of shit too. And it's kind of interesting to hear how after the fact, when everybody's criticizing the Jacks for, the Penguin, it's pretty innocuous, right? It's not an egregious thing. First of all, Jalen Waddle does it. These are kids. Kids always copy the NFL. It's an imitation league, both college and the NFL, and NFL will mimic college in terms of scheme and some of the creativity. But in terms of celebrations, you're seeing all the same thing. Everybody's doing this, like, is that a
the strap and then the one of these? Like, come on.
They do that. They all do the same thing. So from that perspective, I like to see them be a little bit more creative. But I will say this: I thought it was hilarious. I thought the Penguin dance was hilarious. I didn't understand the running the goal line, but maybe he kind of just wanted to bask in his own athletic ability there for a bit. But if you listen to these kids post game, man, Tucker Large was like, Jaden's definitely the best number 1. He was wearing it before me. Tyler Merriam asked Jaden the same question. He didn't want any of it. He wasn't biting at that. And I think it's really interesting because him and Jackson are pretty humble kids, man. They grew up in, was it Madison, South Dakota? Not necessarily an urban hotspot of swag and arrogance. So I think they're pretty grounded kids, especially given how damn athletic they are. Because shout out to Tanner Castora, who does a great job covering the squad. The Ohio kid himself posted a really fascinating thing. I wish we had Scott in the green room right now, but posted a really fascinating clip, side-by-side comparison to Marvin Harrison, or Maserati Marv, that the pundits are kind of thrown out there as a nickname. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is, for those who don't know, which I don't know how you wouldn't, is going to be probably top 5 overall pick in the draft this coming year, and he's an unbelievable talent at wide receiver. Well, we have a like opponent. Youngstown State played them early in the year. They lost 35-7 to them. To Ohio State. Youngstown lost, and then Marvin Harrison put up 160 yards receiving. I want to say 6 or 7 catches, and then 2 touchdowns. Well, Jaden Yankee had 7 catches, 166 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty dope. I mean,
yeah, for sure. And
it's not saying he is Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's a fascinating comp.
Like, yeah. But I mean, our guys can ball. That's what it's saying. You know what I mean? Like,
saying. We got guys on scholarship too, and they're pretty good. And so for any recruits taking notice, I did notice we got a receiver out of Kansas, very similar to the Yankees in terms of the physicality in which he plays with. Also got Graham Goring, which I'm excited to see him continue to take a step. And then the length and the route running ability and just the game-changing effect that Griffin Effin Wilde has is pretty hilarious, especially because I got into a Twitter spat, which is hilarious. I know better than an engaged troll, especially as a professional media personality like myself. But I think it was funny because he was like, who even is that guy? I posted a roster shot of Griffin Wilde. And he's like, nobody even knows who he is. He definitely does. He's a Grand Forks troll out of
that guy, the old guy.
Yeah, exactly. The old guy. We won't even give him clout here, his name, but I just thought it was hilarious because he was torching defenses all day like he has all year. Now we're gonna go ahead, man.
I said, yeah, after a year, like after spring ball and winter workouts, like he's about to come out with Coach Jacobs. He's about to come out looking totally different. I'm excited to see what he looks like after a year of that.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Coach Jacobs, too. Shout out to Coach Jacobs and Bria Be Well. If you guys haven't listened to our special feature podcast that we did with Bree Feidler out of Be Well Brookings, that's a good one to listen to because the guys definitely look healed and ready to rock come game time, whether it's like calming their central nervous system or what. The Yoga for Athletes thing's definitely taken effect for the boys in a positive way. If we look at just Mark's statistics, because it's easy to kind of overlook him given how well he protects the ball and how well he plays overall. He had 295 in about he had 295 through the air in probably his greatest attempts, I want to say. Yeah, he had 28 attempts. I don't really recall us throwing that many times. Usually he's in like the 15 to 20 range max per game. 3 touchdowns, obviously 2 to Yankee. Jaden Jackson did not play. It doesn't look like he's going to miss extended time. He'll probably be back this upcoming week for senior day. That's kind of what I would imagine if I'm a coaching staff, if I'm the athletic training staff, and there's a little bit of soreness in a knee or whatever the case may be. I'm going to hold him out so he gets to experience senior day with his guys at home, final regular season 1. That's probably my take. Your thoughts on that, Stack?
Yeah, I'm probably thinking the same thing. And knowing Jackson, he probably wasn't that he had to sit out. But, I mean, sometimes you got to take one for the squad, especially with a game like this. You know, senior day coming up, you can't miss that. So, and I know Chuck and those guys are getting them right too. So,
and this looks a lot more like it. Granted, on the telecast, are they going to with all the fear and paranoia around the F word and the C word? It's kind of funny. It's a little double meaning there, which is hilarious. But the F word and the C word, I guarantee you, they probably just wanted to go with some knee soreness, lower back soreness, whatever. Smart play. But this is all speculation. That's what we get paid the big bucks to do is speculate. But we're still athletes, so we know the game. Definitely love what Isaiah did yet again. I mean, I think it's hilarious. Just to touch on a little bit of the controversy from the post-game interview in which Mitch Davidson, the quarterback from Youngstown State, foolishly, I understand what his sentiment was, but foolishly said that, we weren't anything special. We weren't bigger, stronger, or faster. We put our pants on the same way. That is damn near a verbatim quote. don't really want to beat this to death any more than I have already on X or Twitter. But Isaiah carried a guy literally 10 yards, and he had 131 yards, which is a seven-yard average on 19 carries. Angel could have gotten off however he wanted. Amar could have gotten off however he wanted. Chase threw a no-look pass when he got in the game. Kevin Brenner looks like he could have gone for over 50 yards receiving against them if he would have gotten more touches. I mean, Jaden was dusting fools all day, so they're not faster than us, and they're not bigger. Look at Zach Hines. Look at Garrett Greenfield. Look at Aaron Wolfkale Holson. He's a younger D lineman, and he ate. Look at Randy Kay. He came back from a big injury. He was batting balls down, getting his hands up. I think it's really, really interesting because a lot of these young kids, I understand the sentiments. They want to compete, but there's a difference between competing and not losing with grace. You know what I mean? Just because you give another team a nod doesn't mean you're not good. Sometimes not your
Yeah.
day. And I don't need people to bend the knee to South Dakota State. I don't give a rip. I give balanced perspective. I love covering my alma mater and talking shop with you because we know the game. We know the X's and the O's. And it's fun to cover a winner for sure. But I'm going to let dudes have it if they're playing poorly. You know what I mean? I'm not going to come at them personally, but I'm going to say, hey, their technique can be better. You know, their execution can be better. The scheme can be better. But to throw both his coach under the bus and then the team that shut you out under the bus, a little bit suspect. Your thoughts?
And it's like, at that point, game's over, right? So, like, you're not even playing South Dakota State anymore. So there's no bulletin board material or anything like that. Like, at that point, you could just be like, that's a good football team. And we're not there yet. I think he said something to the effect of that, you know, they got a lot of older guys and one day we'll be there. But it's like, hey, man, you know, you just got a goose egg put up and then you guys let up 34 points. Like, it'd be different if it's a close game and you're feeling like emotional because you're like, it's back and forth. You don't know who's going to win and all this. Like, no, you guys knew it was over by the second quarter, right? Like, it was over. At halftime, you guys were like, okay, well, let's play for pride. That's what your coach is telling you in the halftime locker room. We're playing for pride, boys. Let's not make ourselves look too bad, right? So if you're getting that speech at halftime, after the game, you go out and you say, this is a good football team. We're not there yet. That's all you need to hear.
Appreciate you, Jim. Yeah, it's exactly right, Stack. Like, keeping everything in perspective. I think they probably didn't tell them straight up that at halftime, but they definitely knew what the story was, right? Just looking at them like taking size on the sideline, and Doug Phillips over there, he was gracious in defeat, just like he should have been. But when you get 88 total yards at halftime, that's tough. You barely possess the ball.
Tough.
It's tough, man. You end with 47 total rushing yards. You end with 160 total passing yards, and there was a point there where we definitely had subs in the game, right? It's tough, man. So you're not going to win a lot of games that way. Shout out to Tucker Large. Shout out for getting a pick. Shout out to Brian Williams, like we said, who's really, really elevated his game a lot this year, which has been really fun to see.
Yeah.
I always love seeing those transfer up guys like him, like Jason Freeman, guys like Savion Williamson who've really elevated his play, because Bach has not been back most of the year. Yeah. Although I want to say he played probably the most this game that I've ever seen so far to date this year. And when we look at what we've done from a special teams perspective, Dustman was just obliterating the ball when he did punt. He had a booming punt. And then when you look at the one missed field goal that he had, again, it kind of looked like he got laces. Granted, the end zone shot was looking at the kickers. It wasn't from behind the kicker, so I couldn't quite tell. John Bell's done a great job of improving that. He's getting the ball down really quickly, but again, just need to kind of tweak some things here and there. Coach Cashman has upped his game. I would say this one. Oh, go ahead.
So speaking of field goals, we got to shout out Ryan Van Marl, man.
Oh my God, yeah.
We got to shout out Big Ounce, man. I don't know if you're watching, bro, but you've been playing some ball, bro. Like, obviously D-line wise, but in special teams, like, do you know how demoralizing that is? Like for North Dakota State?
This is the hard part, brother. We have such playmakers across, like guys are just owning their role for however little time they're on the field or however long they're on the field. And that's a championship recipe, you know.
Yeah.
Not to sit here and toot our own horn, because there is some criticism I want to get to. The tackling has got to improve. That was C-level tackling, and we got a shutout. That tackling, damn near abysmal for Jack's capabilities, right? Now, it's not abysmal. Whenever I criticize a team like of this caliber, people need to know I'm not saying it's abysmal outright. I'm saying it's abysmal for the standard that we hold ourselves to, and we all know that the statement is the standard. So we're going to continue to hold ourselves to a higher one, right? Scott, exactly right. A lot of over pursuit, but in reality, Coach Stig, this was actually one of the most brilliant coaching points I want to coach up Coach Stig on, or give him credit for. Whenever we were talking about special teams and we were quote unquote breaking down, he said, you never want a car to break down. You never want a sports car to break down. You come to balance before you extend your hips through them and hit on the rise. And I think that is a phenomenal way to articulate how you need to tackle. What I'm noticing is the guys are shooting their shot, so to speak, or blowing their wad, or whatever metaphor from the football echelons you want to use. They need to trust their feet more, maintain their leverage in their inside out hip pocket, right? And then run through their face. That's what we need to start seeing more of. I know the guys are going to shore that up, because we do have some playmakers coming into town this weekend. I think one of them is probably not going to play because it looks like he dislocated his elbow, but we should transition into that. Any final thoughts on things we can do better from a defensive or offensive or special teams perspective?
Yeah, I was just thinking mainly same as you. Like, instead of just going for the kill shot, right? Just bring him down. It's not gonna look cool, right? You're not gonna be able to post it on Instagram. You're not gonna be able to stand over the guy and talk crap to him. But you want to get him down, right? It's not about how you get him down; it's just about getting the dude down. So
exactly. Preston, I see your question. We'll get to it for sure once we get into this FCS stuff. Playoff stuff here real quick. Basically asking what team from the Valley would be toughest to face again. It is all about matchups, so it is interesting. Let's look really quick here. I'm going to jump to our Missouri State stats. Okay. So their quarterback, they played a like opponent this past week. Their wins have come against some of the bottom feeders, right? For those watching this on Facebook Live or on Twitter, this is Missouri State football's cumulative statistics from the year. We're going to run through these real quick. They're giving up damn near 30 points a game, right? So 30 points a game on the road. That doesn't mean their defense is likely going to travel. We still need to execute, because they just hung a bunch of points on UNI, right? They're scoring 31 points a game. So if I'm looking at a glass half full, they're still scoring more than they surrender, which is, I suppose, a positive. I mean, I'm trying to their rushing yards per game, they got 1350, so they're averaging about 3.6 per attempt. Something's got to give, because I think we're only surrendering about 3.2-ish from a Jackrabbit defensive perspective. On what they're surrendering is 5.1 yards per attempt. They've played, remember again, those wins that they've got are from some of the lower echelon teams, save for UNI. So I don't know, man. You guys be the judge. From a passing perspective, Peugeot did go off, and I would be shocked if he didn't share Offensive Player of the Week honors if that hasn't already been announced, potentially with Jaden Yonke, because 7 receptions for $166 and 2 tuds on the road against number 22 is pretty darn good. So they're putting up a lot of yards per game, 407 in total offense, but they're surrendering 420. That's, again, it's just like defense wins championships. You look at it historically, and I'll try to pull this up on FCS Reddit. I'll share it to Twitter after this, because it was a really, really good spreadsheet breakdown of the top performers in the history of the FCS. And the one commonality was ruthless defensive play. The 1987, I remember from the top of my head, the 1987 Holy Cross team has the best defensive output at surrendering only 10 points per game. Number 2, the Jackrabbits. And that's talking about the Marshall team with Randy Moss and Chad Pennington. Granted, it probably didn't matter what type of defensive numbers they had, although they were good. You're talking the 16 James Madison Dukes. You're talking the 13, the 18 Bison, and the 19 Bison, right? Those are like the top 5 programs to ever play in the FCS ever, statistically. And when you look at this, the Jacks have a lot in front of them to really do here. We're talking about some of the best ever, all time to ever play at this subdivision level. So,
and it's just I mean, that's, fun stuff to say, but I mean, like, when you look at it, and you watch the games, like, you watch and you're like, bro, like, and like, I think about this a lot. I'm like, what would I do? Like, if I was Youngstown State, like, honestly, what would I do?
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. Like, and there's so much more that we're leaving on the table. That's the great part, in my opinion, because I can't stand like settling. Like, we're not here to smell our own farts. I think that's what the Twitter haters are kind of. That's the impression I'm getting from them, that we've become the Bison fans. I mean, every fan base has it, right? Where they think they can do no wrong. They're high on their own supply and all that type of stuff. We're a different podcast because we're alums who used to play and we know the game and we know the DNA of the team. This team is leaving a lot on the table. That's not from a fan perspective. That's a team that's literally leaving points on the table. Look at the numbers we're putting up from a stats perspective, and we have an absurd amount of penalties. Teams get beat when they have that. We have absurd amount of penalties. We're sitting starters who are elite, the best producers on our team, on both sides of the ball, and we're winning handedly.
We're sitting all Americans. All Americans. We're sitting like some of the best in the country.
I didn't even think about this until just articulating that. That's insane. That's insane. That's
just
crazy.
The amount of depth that they're blessed with, and just the moment not being too big, for some of those guys that have to step up, like a freshman like Griffin Wilde or Savion Williamson, who's sat behind great linebackers for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, for last year and then this year, like, moments not too big. Like, he's like, I belong where I am, like, and even young guys on D-line that have like not played for 2 or 3 years that are coming on and really making a name for themselves this year. Like, it's kind of, like you said, like, you don't want to sit here and just, sing praises the whole time. But like, if you watch these games and see what they're doing, like, they're 40 balling people week in and week out and letting up 10 points.
It's getting to a point where it's like, okay, I don't even know who. Yeah, I don't know who. So we'll get into that who here next. But over under here, Jim, thank you for sharing. I don't know if those are actual stats that are borne out right now in terms of the margin of victory, but looks pretty right. I do know that it was like 28 yesterday, so maybe it's dropped a half point.
And they're giving up points this year. Like, you're not going to get in a shootout with the Jacks because you're scoring maybe 7 points in the second half.
Like I said, we need a force de jour, and even at that point, with what I've seen out of Chase, if the worst possible happened, which I'm not going to say, but if the worst possible happened, I like where Chase is at. I like our ability to scheme. The coaches can really earn their money and earn their keep, and I like what we've got going so far. We've overcome it in the past when Zay went down. We've overcome it when we had to play without PS2, different games. Tucker, last year we won a national title without our best, not necessarily our best, but our most dominant offensive weapon when he's got the ball in his hands, in Tucker Kraft, and it's crazy. I never thought
Caleb was playing on one foot that game. He hurt his foot like the first drive. So he's not playing at 100%. Like, he's taking toward all shots. Like,
are you talking Youngstown?
No, I was talking about last year.
Yeah.
In the national championship. Yeah, Caleb was hurt. So, like, Ryan Van Marl, other guys stepping up, making plays, like,
Oh, Caleb Sanders was hurt.
Yeah, he had messed up, tweaked his foot like
I didn't know
first
that.
drive of the game.
Well, and then Zach broke his foot. So it's
Yeah,
crazy,
so
man. It's crazy. So, not to gloss over them, but Pacho is a quarterback who is pretty good. He can sling it. They do have talent on the perimeter. Their stats in terms of folks who are kind of leading the charge for them from an individual perspective. Jacardia Wright, he's a Kansas State transfer. For those of you looking, hopefully you can kind of see that resolution. But Jacardia Wright, he had 147 attempts at the running back position, close to 800 yards, almost 5 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns, decent receiver out of the backfield as well. But he had 17 receptions for 271 yards. He's a pretty versatile back. Again, transferred for Kansas State. It did look in the UNI game like he dislocated his elbow. It was pretty gruesome. You can find that circulating on X if you want to check it out. Send some prayers up for that kid, man. That sucks. You don't wish any injury. It's a great equalizer in terms of talent, but it's bad, man. It's real bad. But from a receiving perspective, Raylan Sharp, he's pretty good. He had his way against UNI last week. I want to say he went for 160 some as well and a couple touchdowns. They will turn the ball over. Back at cumulative stats, if we recap them again, down here at the bottom, in terms of fumbles lost, they've got 14 total and 8 lost. In terms of interceptions, Pacho is responsible for 11 interceptions. So, not great ball security when you got 11 picks and 8 fumbles. That's because, the Jacks are ball hawks, whether it be through the air or on the ground. They're going to make you feel them. So, in terms of kicking game, they're averaging a decent amount of punt yardage. Their net punt yardage is pretty decent as well. They're 8 of 11 on field goals. That's kind of where Hunter's hovering right now, around that percentage. So that's tough to kind of say necessarily if that's the case, if it's good quality or if it's just a function of some chip shot field goals. Could be both. I haven't seen every single game. In terms of their third down conversion percentage, this is going to be huge. This is probably a little differentiator here. 44%. That's got to be low in the valley, especially because the Jacks are first at around 58, 59%. So, which probably increased this past weekend. So overall, I think, if you want to get into it and deep dive into them yourself, there's plenty of ESPN Plus footage. I'd rather focus on the Jacks and seeing what they're going to be able to do this coming weekend on the field on their own. Any final thoughts? We should get into assets of the week and predictions, and then we should move into FCS playoff talk.
Yeah, I just they can take the tops off of defenses. So this is a quarterback plays in what it was last year. I think like athletically wise, like I thought Shelley was like kind of a freak athlete, but I still think they're solid. They can put up points, but in my opinion, giving up that many points and playing the Jackrabbits is not going to end well for you. So it may look good for like a quarter maybe, but I think it may get ugly here in the second half. My thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Shelley was a freak, obviously a transfer. They do have several transfers on the roster. Asset of the week on offense for me. I'm going to go with a Missouri kid. I'm going to go with Amar. I think they're going to try to do things to sell out and stop one component of our game, and I think it's going to be the power run game, because I don't know that they have the bodies and the talent to stop it. They probably have the talent. They don't have the numbers and the size. So they're going to try to outnumber us in that phase and capacity of the game. And I think Amar is going to be the smooth playmaker that he needs to be. Also look for some other guys out there on the perimeter catching the ball to be important in this one. How about you?
I say, yeah, man, it's senior day. Give me the Yankee brothers just kind of spazzing one last time in the regular season in Brookings. I think they got it in them.
Those are great. Love it. Love it. Scott's got 150 plus to Z for days. So does Jim. In terms of defense, who we got on the old defensive asset of the week?
Man, I'm gonna have to go with Jason. Like he's elevated his play. I mean, even in the run game, he's a ball hawk, physical, like how he's been playing. But then
You
I
pick
just
Jason. You pick Jason.
yeah, I did.
Who's crossing your mind? Who's giving you second guesses?
Big ounce. Ryan Van Morrow's been he's been playing so
You got to
good.
go with him. You haven't picked him yet, I don't think. Maybe once.
Really? Yeah, no. Give me Big Ounce, and he's been playing his nuts off here.
That's right.
Weeks.
That's right. I would have gone with Jason as well, but I'm going to tell you this. I think because he's done a good job, he gets overlooked because we don't talk about production because nobody produces on him. We do definitely talk about his run fits and some of the plays that he makes, but I'm going to go with Daishawn. Daishawn, as a senior, trying to put his stamp on being one of the best DBs to ever play at South Dakota State, which is saying a lot. We've had some good ones. Tyler Cook, Cole Brody, General Parnell. We've had a lot of them. I'm sure I'm missing somebody.
So yeah, you've had your Dons, your
NFL,
Jordan
Brown, NFL. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were smooth players, man. Jordan Brown was a smooth athlete.
And I just want to say, like, when we put Daishawn up there, like, I'm being like dead serious. Like, he's probably the best to ever do it over these guys playing the NFL. Some currently
most complete, definitely the most complete. And then there's a guy on the team who has a chance to transcend and rise above him, and that's Dallas Beanham. And that's kind of who I would lean towards. But I think on senior day, I got to pick a senior. These dudes are going to ball out. And then special teams, is Dustman a senior? I don't even know because he does so much. I think he's maybe a junior, right?
I don't think he's a senior because I'm trying to think. 2019 would have been his. I don't know. He might be. Is he in the same grade as Mason? I'll have to ask him.
I agree, Scott.
I'll shoot him a text.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. Crazy how much Daishawn's improved throughout the year, and he was a walk-on quarterback, man. That's like the motto at South Dakota State for a while was you can go anywhere from here. You can become any athlete from where you start to where you finish at South Dakota State. That's true as well. So I think what we're gonna do is transition maybe about just some brief. We got about 7 minutes. We're gonna transition some brief discussion on FCS bracketology. So I think, we'll focus on the Valley because this is a primarily Valley pod, not a national one.
Big Sky are frauds. Sorry, I had to say that.
What did you say?
They're frauds in the Big Sky.
Here we go.
Maybe not Idaho, but I think maybe not Idaho, but they are frauds out there, bro. I am sorry. They may beat up on each other and it may look good to you. I'm saying, like, if you let the Jackrabbits get their hands on them and they don't beat themselves, it's gonna get ugly with every last one.
Yeah, again, I think it's the Jacks. The Jacks are they're not gonna necessarily get out schemed. It's gonna take a mastermind. It will take like an Eck and then Idaho playing the most perfect game it's ever played to try to. And again, it's not slighting other people. I'm not. We just walked through. We've sat All-Americans and blown teams out. We've been the most penalized team almost in every game and blown most of the teams out. So it's crazy.
Just handing out 40 balls and not playing your best football is crazy. I'm just saying.
And leaving tons of points on the field.
Yeah, bro. I don't know what to tell you, bro.
So Preston, I think this is a good one. I want to hear your take on this stack. Which team out of the Valley do you think would be the toughest if we face them on our side of the bracket?
I will say I think North Dakota State's trending up. I think, they're playing a lot better than they were. I think maybe they're kind of figuring things out. Because I personally, what I think is going to happen is, like, I think North Dakota State's going to catch USD in the playoffs again.
And they'll make a run and they'll beat them. Yeah,
they're going to beat the brakes off them, right?
I think they might. I would think they might beat them by 2 to 3 touchdowns. And the funny thing is like, I think the hardest part for Bison fandom is they're seeing what happens when your defense gives up points. and they're not used to that. And then, but their offense is not built to allow those points. It's a quasi,
Yeah.
and I hate saying this because they're absolutely not that, but it's almost like a triple option offense where their passing ability is anemic when forced into it. And that's not what I'm saying, but it feels like that, right? When they're not built for that type of a comeback type 2-minute offense, especially when they have no hurry up installed, talking to their fan base. And I will say, I need to shout out Cam Miller, man. He's pressed the ball downfield this past game against uh, who did they play? Southern Illinois. But granted, we had opportunities downfield too. That was probably our worst played game, even though it was on the road. I didn't like our play calling largely in that game. The score was skewed. Obviously we left 13 points on the field in that one, which would have put us at 30 points, in that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say overall, the best two defenses that we could face from the Valley would be North Dakota State and then South Dakota in that order. Because I think North Dakota State, the tenacity with which they play defense is higher.
Yeah.
They're a swarming defense, and I think you need that when you have the physicality that we do. I would say North Dakota State out of the Valley. I would say Montana State or Montana out of any other, because they play swarming. They play a proud defensive brand, right? I mean,
yeah.
Jimmy is a lot more palatable than I would even from an outsider's perspective. Jimmy's way more palatable than like a Bobby Hawk out of Montana, but they're equally like, I don't give a fuck attitude. Pardon my French. I don't give a damn attitude when it comes to narrative stories, all this bullshit that you hear from media pundits, right? And I think that mentality trickles down into your team, and then it rubs off on the way they play defense more than anything. So it'll be fascinating to see the Brawl of the Wild this weekend. Dan is absolutely right, because this one's going to be big time. The Brawl of the Wild will be big for seeding. I got Montana winning this one just because they had their shit rocked last time, just on college game day. And
I would like to see Montana State lose, like, because I love just seeing their coach, like, when he's all pissed when they lose, and he's like trying to keep his composure. I love it, like, because he just be getting so mad, like every time they lose, I watch their presser.
Of course, I'd like to see it more for just like fresh blood, like and really, we've beaten Montana State 2 out of 3 times in playoffs in recent years, at least dating back to 2014. And I'd like to see Montana, because that team we haven't beaten the playoffs.
Yeah,
we're 0-2 against them. My only playoff appearance, we were beating the absolute brakes off them. I've said it on the podcast before. It may sting some folks I graduated with who follow, but I think it's one of these ones that never escapes you. We're up 24 points late in the third quarter, bro, and we lost. So I would love
Coach used to tell us that story quite a bit.
I mean, yeah. It's still, I'm more so like, I've moved on. I'm not bitter, but I'm more so befuddled at how the hell that shit happened.
Yeah. Trust me, I feel you. That national championship, we're up. I'm like, dude, they just scored. I'm like, dude, I'm on suicide watch after that one.
Absolutely, man. And so in terms of seeding, I think the Jacks, like I said, it would take a force de jour, which is like an act of nature and unforeseen, to knock us out of the 1 spot. It just would. I think the number 2 seed will likely it's going to go to the winner of the Brawl Wild.
You think so? Not Idaho?
No, Idaho's dropped. They lost to Weber. So they're not going to get that. So yeah, I think number 3 will go to Furman if they get the job done. I think they play Sanford. No, they already played Sanford. They play an 0-10 team, so they're going to wrap that up. They'll absolutely wrap that up. I'm trying to pull it up here. I'll pull it up here real quick. But in terms of, we should talk about the logjam in the Valley. I think the teams that are going to get in are South Dakota State, South Dakota, North Dakota
NDSU
State.
will make it.
I think UNI.
God, I hope they do. But I mean, don't.
I think UNI is going
They
to
play
get
North
in.
Dakota State, so
I think UNI. That Missouri State loss was so bad for them. It was on the road, and they do consider the committee. If you go listen to Sam Herder, he interviewed the chair of the FCS playoff committees, who happens to be the Montana AD. So it's kind of funny because last year there was that controversy where North Dakota outbid Montana, really everybody by like a huge multiplier. But Montana backed their way into the playoffs and got a seed and got a home game. Very suspect.
yeah.
I see that probably. I mean, North Dakota State is probably not. They're a little uneasy about seeding because they don't want to take anything for granted because this is a very unpredictable team in relationship to what they've played in past years in terms of the brand that they played. But I think that you're going to see them get a seed. I think they'll probably be 8 seed if they get the job done. Now they are having to go to Cedar Falls, so that's a different element as well. I think it's going to hang on how well Theo Day plays, who's been Jekyll and Hyde, right? When he doesn't get the protection that he gets from Spencer Brown and Trevor Penning, I think you see what happens. I mean, same thing. And I'm looking forward to the same thing for Mark in future years to see him earn his money, so to speak, when it comes to play with a different type of offensive line. So the Panthers will go as Theo Day goes. Turns the ball over, it ain't going to happen. If they can possess the rock and keep it away from another ball-possessing offense, I think bodes well. Either way, I think it's going to be Jacks, Yotes, Bison, Panthers. I think that's it.
I would like to see, because UNI is just so streaky, but like that is a good football team. And I would just love for them to prove the point I just made. If they get their hands on a Big Sky team, I think they would do something nasty to them.
Exactly.
I think.
And the weird thing is here, I don't know about North Dakota because North Dakota technically has better wins and a better resume than North Dakota State. I mean, they beat North Dakota State by 20-plus points. They have a win there, but they don't have any other really reputable wins whatsoever. UNI has better wins, but then they have egregious losses. So it's kind of how they evaluate the losses as well. That's my take. It should be interesting. I think top to bottom, the CAA is in a tiebreaker scenario between like Villanova and Albany, which shout out, I called Albany at the beginning of the year watching their level and quality of play. So I just want to give a shout out to myself there. What's that acceptance speech? Was it Snoop who's like, I would like to thank myself for being me? Yeah. Sorry, had to do that. Just trying to keep it light here, folks. If we're honest, the committee doesn't care about seeds as much as matchups. I think that's probably true, but I think they're moving away from regionality. Like last year, we didn't get hit with – I know in the first round games, you can't play conference opponents, which are great. And then you can't play teams that you play back-to-back. So there's interesting little loopholes there. Dan, you're right. NDSU or UND only has one win against a good opponent. Yeah, you're right, Chris. SIU could back their way in. They have that FBS win, which – it is an FBS team, but more likely, if you're looking at Northern Illinois, certain years you could probably relegate them. Coach E, love Coach E. He was my offensive coordinator. He's a great coach, but Northern Illinois is not looking good this year. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, UNI has bad losses, Jim. It's kind of up in there. It's crazy. But we're going to let the dust settle on this one. I think it'll be fascinating to see what happens after this weekend, and then come selection Sunday when they see it broadcast on probably ESPNU because they bump us over those networks. But tune in. You guys make sure you check out Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro's winter menu. Make sure you go to cottonwoodcoffee.com to check out their auto draft and their ability to ship direct to door. Make sure any orders over $20, you get that free shipping. So take advantage of that. Shout out to True North Retirement Team, helping secure your assets for any stage of life that you're in and making sure they put their money where their mouth is in terms of helping you set yourself up for your future. If you want to do a free consultation with them, hit them up at 480-323-5801. For all you folks who tune in with us every week, we appreciate it. We appreciate the familiar faces and names and feedback that we get in the comments. Feel free to check out our Spotify. If you wouldn't mind, please rate us so that we can appear more in the algorithm as we moved away from the Jackrabbit Illustrated Network. We're trying to build our own thing here and create some exclusive content for you, by athletes, for the fans. So with that, go big, go blue, go Jags.
Go Jacks.
That's right, baby.